Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Beth Golden, and this is my channel. Subscribed, I'd love it if you went ahead and did so. And today I'm going to be playing in my Bible. I have an upcoming design team project. It's a hop with the Joy Claire company, and the focus is on the Color Faith series. So I'm really enjoying this because it's allowing me to go ahead and get into Bible journaling, which is something I've wanted to do for years. I started off with using the Bible Well, which I really like. That's another little company. And it comes actually with a Bible study as well. It is so good. And so I'm no expert by any means at this yet. But for me, it's so much more than just creating art in my Bible. It's about, it's about time with God. And I wanted to share with you a couple of different ways that you can do that. Last week, I was in the Bible, doing Bible journaling with you guys, and I did His Cup Runneth Over, which was this one right here. And so today, I want to focus on the parable of the lost sheep, which is verse 10 in Matthew 7 and Matthew 18 starts in verse 10 and it carries on through verse 14. And basically the scripture says, "See that you don't look down on one of these little ones, because I tell you that in heaven their angels continually view the face of my Father in heaven, for the Son of Man has come to save the lost. What do you think? If a man has 100 sheep and one of them goes astray, won't he leave the 99 on the hillside and go and search for the stray? And if he finds it, I assure you, he rejoices over that sheep more than he rejoices over that sheep more than over the 99 that did not go astray. In the same way, it is not the will of your Father in heaven that one of these little ones perishes." And it reminds me of the song that's out right now, and it talks about how it's called, I think it's called A Reckless Love, and it talks about how there's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. And I just think it fits perfectly with this. And apparently, so do the people of Joy Claire, because they created this stamp set with that verse and the lyrics to the song, as well as a cute little sheep. So I thought I would go ahead today and just create a Bible art page using this stamp set, along with distress ink, distress pins. And to prep the surface, I went ahead and just used some Art Basics by Prima clear gesso. There's a couple different types of clear gesso that would work. Anything really would. This is just what's in my stash, because I am going to be throwing on some water and ink, and I really don't want it to bleed through. And I want to show you how, when you clear gesso your page, how it really does help. Like, this page is not clear gessoed, so the back shines through. But let me find the one I did the other day. This one does have clear gesso on it that I did last week. And as you can see, the back of the page really held nicely. So if you're working in your Bible, an encyclopedia page, dictionary, any kind of page that's kind of this super, super thin quality to it, always clear gesso it, because you're going to protect it. So the colors that I'm choosing today to do my Bible journaling on is the Distress ink line. I do have Distress oxides, but I really favor the Distress ink, so I'm going to stick with that. Is the Twisted Citron, the Chip Sapphire, and the Stormy Sky. And then the colors that I'm going to use to shade in my little sheep and then some of the flowers are going to be, and then also the leaves, I might add that too, I'm not sure yet, are going to be with the Distress marker, the Blueprint Sketch, the Iced Spruce, the Stormy Skies, and then the Lucky Clover. Now, Since these are going to mesh together and meld as I stamp the images and color them in, it's super crucial that I keep in mind my color families so I don't end up with brown, unless I'm going for brown, which I'm not. This is completely experimental. I have never, ever, 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 ever used distress inks in my Bible before. So this is going to just be fun, and I'm hoping that it works out. And I create a really beautiful page, but we will see. I have been toying with the idea of purchasing the illustrated Bible by Day Spring. However, it's super duper expensive. It's $99, and I mean, this is my little coloring Bible that I've had forever, and this is fine to work in, but boy, that illustrated Bible sure does look nice. That has really wide sides, and the pages are made for mixed media and paint and things, and it's spiral bound, so you can lay it flat, and I just keep eyeing that thing thinking, maybe that's something I should probably ask for my birthday, huh? All right, and I just store my dabbers in the top of my lid, like most people do with their little mini inks. I really like the mini size because of that. I also can take this wherever I'm going, and it travels nicely as well. In addition, I am working on this mat as to keep my surface flat, and so it doesn't move all around. So I'm just laying out this color, and I'm trying to work from lightest to darkest. I'm not trying to get like that perfect distress background. I just kind of want the page to have some pretty color down. I really love that citron green, so nice. And then this is Stormy Skies, and I am going to color the little sheep in the Stormy Skies as well, just because I think it's a beautiful blue. I also pulled out iced spruce so that I can add some gray to it as well, because I think that might be good to mix the two colors. And I'm going to actually wet this down too, and then take a heat gun to it a little bit. Then I'm going to take I'm not quite done with this yet. I thought I was going to be done with this, but I'm not. I've been really looking forward to today's live or show or tutorial, whatever you want to call it, because I've really grown to enjoy working in my journal, in my Bible. It's quite fun for me. And in my quiet time, as I was prepping for this last night, I was listening to some spiritual music, and it's just a nice thing to do. I have 3 kids, and they're all teenagers right now. I have 14, 16, and 18. And one of the things I read in a book called Prayer Circles or Praying Circles was the best thing, or one of the things you can do for your kids. It's one of the best things to pray over them every day, and to go through the Bible and just have a Bible for them and just pray through the Bible on their behalf. And so, when I read that, my oldest, I believe, was a freshman. He was going into his freshman year. So I made the decision that I was going to prayerfully go through the Bible for each of them when they got into high school. And so my senior I finished his Bible for him back in, I want to say October. And I've been working on my daughter's as well. So I wrote notes in the Bible for him, and wrote out prayers for him throughout the Bible, highlighted things, prayed over it. So my goal is when he graduates to give it to him so that he always knows that he was covered, and I continue to cover him in prayer just like I will his sister too. All right, so I'm going to take my distress spray and just kind of wet this down a little bit just to get it to move some. Oh, I like how that looks. And then I'm going to take just my craft rag and pick up the excess. And then I want to go ahead and just hit this with some water. And then I'm going to go ahead and start my stamping. That really did remove quite a bit of color, so I'm going to go back in and add a little bit in spots. And as you can see, since I kept in mind my color family, I don't have any brown. What causes brown is when you mix your color families. So when you mix things that have a red undertone with those that have a blue undertone, vice versa. And then purple is the one exception to the rule. Diane Reevely calls it the color of sin because it will turn everything brown unless it is blue or red. You can't mix purple with yellow or green because you will end up with mud at that point. So that's just something to, kind of keep in mind when you are using inks that are movable like this. Like this is a definite, these inks are definitely able to just move. And so every time you get them wet, unless you seal them, they will always move. So we have to just keep that in mind as we work with these types of ink. Now the distress oxides, those are pretty cool because once you set them with a heat gun, they don't move, and so you can totally work on top of them and start building and building and building and building. So that's what a lot of people really appreciate about those distress oxides. I don't know why, I just really always like the distress inks best, just my personal preference. This is making some weird scrapey sounds. I'm sorry if you hear that. Nails on a chalkboard. All right, so now I'm going to just hit that one up there with a little bit of water and pick up some of the color, a little bit, those darker spots. All right, so that's looking good. Sorry, I dropped something back there. I'm going to hit this with a heat gun, and I always think of a lost sheep in like stormy skies, and they ran off because they got scared, so I kind of wanted that to resemble this, a little bit of a stormy sky here. Okay, so it's not completely dry, but it's dry enough for me to move on. And as you noticed, I did flip it over and dry the back side as well. And that's because the moisture does seep, and it may feel dry on top, but it will still be dry to affect the images and how the whole thing turns out. From here, I'm going to go ahead and just stamp out my images. I'm going to use the Distress Archival ink, which should hold up to any kind of moisture, and I'm going to be using probably out of this the Hickory Smoke for my little sheep, and then I want to use Mermaid Lagoon for my flower, and Peeled Paint for my leaves and things. And then I think I'm going to do black for the little sayings, and we'll see how much I can fit on this page. Now, since these are a cling foam stamp, there's not cushion on them, which means I have to work on a foam mat. I picked up this foam mat. It was rather large for $8, I think, at Joann's. However, you can just go and buy a regular foam sheet in the kids section of your craft store, and that will do the same. A lot less money. Didn't learn that trick until after I had made this purchase. So let me do, I want to do my little sheep, and I want to do these little flowers as well as the saying, because I absolutely love this saying. But I had envisioned the sheep kind of on the top. So let me put down my little sheep first. And again, I'm using the Hickory Smoke Archival ink. What makes this so cool, I pull these little minis out all the time, and I was on the fence about buying them because, I mean, they're new, but they're not like new in the sense that these, I think the colors have been out for a while, but now they match his distress line, Tim Holtz's distress line, and they're mini. So I just use them for everything. I use them to ink edges, for distress looks. I mean, I use them for everything. So I love these things. All right, and then I'm going to do this. I think I want to do this one because I really like this saying about there's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. I just love this saying. I'm going to do this one in black, in the black archival. And then actually off to the side I did not use any gesso on, I'm going to do the other saying on it just to kind of pull it all in. Hindsight 2020, I should have gessoed this side as well, but I didn't. That's okay, because since I'm using clear gesso, I can go back over it later and gesso it and do art on top of it as well. That's the beauty of your clear gesso. All right, so I'm going to put this one right down about there. Perfect. And then let me go ahead and take, I'm just going to make a mess all over my desk. I'm just going to take this one and again, I'm going to use that black archival, the distress line, which is this one. And I'm going to pop it on here. Ooh, it's easier if I ink it. I love these minis. They're so easy to store. And I'm not going to color this or do anything over on the side with it because I don't have my my page protected yet with the gesso. So it's just going to be this for now. I'm going to leave this alone. I just love that saying, and it just had to come through somewhere for me. All right, so I'm done with this big block for now. So I'm going to put all my dirty stamps over here. I'll clean those off air. And from here, I want to go ahead and throw down some of my flowers. And I'm going to use my Mermaid Lagoon for this one. And I always like to do a couple off of the page. It just makes it's really pleasing to the eye. So I'm just going to do a couple of those off the page. And I'm also going to do them on the scripture as well, because you can read through it, which is super important to me. And I have 2 so far, so I want to add another 3. You always want to work in odds. so I'm just going to do it here. And there. And then I think I'll do another one down coming off the bottom right here. Okay. And then from here I want to go ahead and add I think I want to add these little leaves. I might do both. I'm not sure yet. We'll see. I'm just winging it. I kind of had a plan when I came into this, but that changes from time to time. And this is going to be the Distress Archival peeled paint. And I know that I mentioned last week how, oops, and I don't even have my foam under it. See, it didn't even take because it needs to have that foam. So always make sure that you have your foam under, especially when you're working in a book like this or a Bible or something. I think I mentioned last week how much I truly loved the Joy Claire illustrated line. It's the Bible Journaling Color Faith series. This is the most extensive Bible art that I ever have seen in stamps, and it's phenomenal. So I'm a big fan of these. I just love them. And if you're looking for good Bible art journaling that you can color in and really enhance your Bible journaling experience, I highly, highly recommend this line. Okay, so I have 5 there. I'm going to go ahead and throw in another 2 just because I want to keep it odd. And I'm going to move this over a little bit because I want to throw it in on the bottom. Down here. I like to have it come off the page. And then I'm going to go ahead and just add one more here. All right, now I'm going to start to color it in with my distress markers. And I'm actually, what I like about the distress markers is it does allow you to, distress it, but it also holds its shape very, very nicely. And even though I'm going to go over it with a watercolor brush, it will certainly hold up its shape as I do so. So for my little sheep, I'm just gonna color him in just slightly. And I may have to go over him in black now that I'm doing this, because he kind of blends in a little bit too well. So I'm going to probably go over him in black. And I'm not doing a wonderful color job here because I'm going to go over him with a wet paintbrush to pull out that ink a little bit. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just go over him one more time with black. The cool thing when you do it this way, this technique, is if you don't get it perfect, it's okay, because you will, it'll look, if it's a different color on the bottom, if you go over it again with a different color, it's kind of like a shadow back there, and it looks really neat. So whenever I mess up on a card sentiment or something, I always do that. I go over it with a different darker color, and then it just creates like a shadow with the one behind it. Just a little trick of the trade. There we go. That's better. And I'm going to go ahead and move on to, I'm going to throw in a little bit of this iced spruce as well. And as you can see, he's pretty cute, just like this. I really don't have to go ahead and do much else to him. I might not take a paintbrush that's wet to him. I kind of like how he's looking. I think it looks great. All right, and then from here, I want to move on to my flowers. All right. And I did pull out Blueprint Sketch. So let me do the center first. And I think I'm going to do a different color on the flowers. I'm going to pick a lighter blue, but I will go ahead and fill in all the centers with this sapphire blue first. And I will pull out my wet paintbrush on this to pull that color out. So for this, let me see how tumbled glass works on this. This might be really pretty too. Yeah, I like that. So it's super light. And as I go over this with the paintbrush, I may just concentrate on that sapphire and see how when I went into that sapphire, how the color was kind of pulled through. That's because, again, this is a moving liquid type ink. So it's super important that if you want to color in an image that you do an archival safe ink pad with it as to not lose your lines. But if you want to do blending, that's when you can pull in with these great little distress markers. I finally got the whole line. I'm a couple years behind. I think I got the whole line maybe 6 months ago. I finally ordered them all. I mean, I'm seriously a couple months behind, y'all. I don't always go for the latest and greatest. It takes me a little bit to convince me, but I was pretty impressed with these. I think that they're super fun, and there's so much you can do with them. This artwork over on the other side, let me tell you about that as I continue to color in these little flowers. That is done with this Bible is a color-in Bible. So this is an image that was in the Bible that the illustrators, obviously printed in. What I do with them is I go over in colored pencils. I color them in, and then I go back over and trace them with my Illustrated Bible 0.25 pen. And that Illustrated Bible pen, I think, is my favorite pen around. It is amazing. I use it in everything. It does not leak through. And again, this Bible has not been gessoed. But look, it doesn't leak through. So it is a very cool pen to have in your stash, and it writes beautifully. But the reason why I go over and outline it is because the colors, what it's printed up in is like a gray, it's like a pencil type shade, and you can't really see it. So it gives a nice definition. Otherwise, it just kind of looks super sloppy. And I don't want that. So I always do those. And again, oftentimes I will do that before I do the artwork on the other page. And I really just love how it turns out. Now I'm going to go ahead and just use some Lucky Clover in my little leaves here. And I'm not going to color them all in. I'm just kind of spotting down some color because it's super dark, and when I go over it with a paintbrush, I'm hoping that I can move it enough to pull it out. I really like working with things in nature because nature's not perfect, and if it looks too perfect, then it doesn't look real. So this is a really nice opportunity to just do some mixing. And you got to keep in mind too, I'm still keeping the color family in mind as I create right now. Because my distress markers will mix with the color under it, my distress ink, because I haven't set it. And I'm going to show you how to set it at the end. It's quite easy. It's a wonderful product, and if you use it with your distress oxide, it'll take away that chalky look that distress oxide can leave if that's not what you're going for. So I'll show you how to do that at the end when I'm done. All right, so I do have a little bit of art right there that I want to do, but it would require yellow, and I don't want to do yellow because that'll leave me with brown. So I think I'm just going to go over it. I'm just going to add a little bit of the blue here to this. All right. So I'm going to get out my brush and I'm just going to loosen up some of these lines and some of these colors that I created with my distress markers. And again, it's going to mix even more as I saturate them with water. So just keep that in mind. And so I'm just going over with a very fine brush and going to pull out that color on those leaves, which it is doing, if you can tell. It most definitely is pulling out those colors. Beautiful vibrancy, but it does pull through. So now my leaves definitely have some green all the way through. I love bright colors, so I'm always going to gravitate towards colors like Lucky Clover, which is the green in this. And with this technique, it's not real important that you color in the lines because it's like a watercolor technique. Literally, I mean, we're using water and we're coloring. So, get this one up here. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that sheep yet. I'm going to address him later. I kind of like him as he is. If you've been commenting and I haven't been answering, I apologize. I can't look up all the time and see the comments because I can't pay attention to what I'm doing. And then sometimes people comment and then it just disappears. So I'm very sorry if I'm not trying to ignore you. All right, so let me go through and fill in and just work on these little flowers now. And again, I kind of take my finger and just pull some of the moisture off because it can get really soppy. The first thing I want to do is I just want to push that center color out of the flower and just move everything kind of out from there. So I'm pushing from the center, working my way through, which is diluting the color and also giving some natural shading to it, which I love. And again, that bottom color is playing with the color that I laid down with my Distress Oxide, and I totally know that. So keep that in mind. So I couldn't have thrown down red flowers on this because it would have created brown, and I didn't want brown for this. And I'm just pulling through all from the center, that dark color, just pulling it right on through. Then get some more water. Okay. And I think I will address the sheep. So for the little sheep, I'm going to just wet my brush. I clean my brush and I'm just going to move that color around a little bit just to make them look a little bit more fluid and blended. All right. So from here, what I need to do is I need to just go ahead, dry it, and then I'm going to show you this awesome glaze that Tim Holtz came out with for his product line, and it's a lifesaver. I'm not even kidding you. And do you see how even though I laid out all that water, all that ink, that the clear gesso really protected my Bible page, and there's nothing that bled through where the gesso was. So it's crucial, I think, that I put that down. Okay, so from here, what I could do is I could go back over these flowers again with my stamp and just re-stamp them using that shadow technique, and just re-stamp them so that they kind of pop a little bit more. And I didn't put my foam down, but that just makes them stand out a little bit more, which I really like. And this wasn't in the plan. I wasn't thinking I would be re-stamping some of these images, but once I got my ink down, I really liked how the sheep came out. So just gonna kind of re-ink these. Thanks for sticking with me as I do it. I'm just totally playing as I go. And then I'm almost done. I just got one more to do. These look great, so I'm going to leave those as they are. And there we go. And then one more up here. And then I will hit this one more time with a little bit of heat, even though it doesn't really need it, but I'm going to be putting a glaze on, and I really want it to hold nicely. So I don't want it to mix because the glaze is wet. And what that glaze will allow is for, it'll set the ink. Nothing will be able to, once I wet it, and I'll show you, once I wet it, it will not move. So once the archival ink is dry, it is dry and done. When you are applying your glaze or your gesso, always put a mat under it because it will stick your pages together. So this is Distressed Glaze. It's about $8. I found mine at Michael's, and I used my 40% off coupon because that does seem a little bit steep. One thing that he did do is he created the jar to be able to hold perfectly one of your sponge applicators. So you can literally dip it in and rub it all over. That's great if you don't want to get your fingers dirty, but I've discovered that if I apply it with my finger, I require less of it, so I do not have to worry about running through it quickly because I think it is a rather expensive product. So I just want to make sure that I literally just use what I need. And what you do is you just take and you just rub this all over your finished piece, and what it does is it seals in that color so that, let's say that I'm working on this page and some of my ink accidentally comes over on this page, I'm not going to ruin my page over here. I mean, it's not going to turn it brown, which is what I want. And also, let's be real, I'm working in a Bible in which I'm doing more art. So I really want to make sure that I protect the pieces, the pages that can move around, like if it's re-wet, because I'm working with wet mediums, water and things like that in my Bible. So I need to protect the artwork that I already have to the best of my ability. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just making sure, it doesn't take much, I'm just making sure that I have most of that all in there. I've spread it out. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take a dry cloth, and let me see if I have a clean one. I do. It looks dirty, but I promise it's clean. I just pulled it out. And then you're just going to buff it away. I'm just buffing it away. And then I'm going to show you what happens after I get the whole thing buffed. I'm going to throw some water on it. I'm going to spray it, and we'll see if this really worked. But you want it fairly dry, so you want to just really remove the excess as much as you can. I know it seems silly. Throw it down. Work so hard rubbing it in and then picking it up. But there's something about this technique that just is so cool. And so you can also use this on Distress Oxide. And what it does on Distress Oxide is instead of giving you that chalky finish, it'll give you a clear glazed finish that is shinier, so to speak, or more matte. It's not so chalky. One of the things I don't like about the Distress Oxides, to be real with you, to be blunt, is that chalky finish. So to me, this Distress Micro Glaze is a game changer because I can definitely finish off every piece of it. All right, so now that's fairly set up. Move this out of the way. I'm going to go over it one more time without my mat under there, just to make sure. So let me just take some water and let's see how well this held. And I'm just going to spray. And do you see how it bubbles? It doesn't even penetrate. I don't know if you can see, but it's definitely bubbling, and it does not penetrate the page. So my image is completely protected. See, I picked it up, nothing. It's awesome. All right, guys, I really hope you enjoyed today's little playtime in the Bible. And if you have any questions, please leave them down below. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Also, I would love it if you would share my videos, because that's, that's what I do, and that's how I pay for my craft, is with my channel, and by getting views helps me do that. So I'd really appreciate it. Make sure you tune in for the next video. Check out my blog as well, my website. It's just www.betsgolden.com. I'm going to be featuring this as well as some other Bible art journals that I put together over the next couple weeks on a blog post the 1st of April.